Bye, bye, buongiorno, buonasera. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to an update on travel in Italy for the summer of 2023. I'm Katy, your host. I'm from Untold Italy, which is a podcast and online destination for planning your trips to Italy. And today I have with me my friend Danielle Oteri from Feast Travel. And do you want to introduce yourself, Danielle?
Thank you, Katy. First of all, let me just say, do you know how many people are in Italy walking around with your voice in their heads right now?
I don't know. It's very odd.
Because I was just in Italy, and there were people that recognized my voice from just being a guest on this podcast. So there are a lot of people walking around Katy Clarke in their minds. It's a good thing.
Oh, gosh.
It's a good thing. They're having a good time. I am the founder of Feast Travel, and we provide trip consultations, trip planning, and small group tours in Italy. I do trip consultations where I help self-planners. We do the full kit and caboodle for people who want to let somebody else take care of all of the details, and we run just a few small group tours as well.
I should mention that we run group tours too. I just completely forgot about that. Yes. Oh, well, I'm in my podcast mode. So we, as you can tell, if you're new to the Untold Italy sort of family, we are very passionate about travel in Italy. And between us, Danielle and I have a lot of experience traveling in Italy, and we love to share it with people and help people have the most amazing trip there that they can, because there is a lot of kind of very poor advice out there. And, after many years experience of traveling, we just want to make sure you've got the right information, the most up to date, and you can, access it the best way you can. So we wanted to start off actually, and I'm just going to check out a few comments here. Randy's online. There we go. Hi, Randy. How are you going? And Maria. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your kind words. Maria said we're very helpful, and we do. That's what we try to do. We aim to be very, very helpful. So what we wanted to do is just to give you an example of someone that may have got some bad or poor advice, or maybe no advice at all even about traveling to the Amalfi Coast, and just to give you an idea of some of the things that go around. And we actually found this, I don't know, and I had a mix of emotions around this video, but let's
there's definitely I think people might be surprised at our reactions to it. All right, so I'll pull it up on my screen and play it for everyone here.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, give me one moment to share my screen.
And I'll pop it on live. Yeah, so while you're waiting, there are so many ways to get information these days. And look, I think that the main thing that we want to let everyone know is just make sure that you check out who is giving the information and what their credentials are. For me, one trip to Italy is a perspective for sure, but it may not be an expert perspective. And so let's have a listen to this young lady who arrived in Positano and got a bit of a shock.
Every single influencer and TikToker who put the Amalfi Coast on my For You page over the last 2 months deserves jail time, because while they showed you the gorgeous coastlines and the cute little towns, what they didn't tell you were the disclaimers. First of all, it's impossible to get here. You have to fly into Naples. Then you have to take a train from Naples to Sorrento. Then you have to stand in 90-degree weather waiting for a ferry to get on a ferry with all of your luggage. Mind you, we've been in Europe for 2 weeks. All of your luggage, lug it onto the ferry, get to Amalfi Coast, finally. Then, to get to the highest of the high points, the beautiful hotels with the gorgeous, there's no streets here. There's no cars driving. So you have to walk up 160 stairs with all of your luggage to get to the top of this gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous area with these beautiful views, carry it, and then also all the power went out because the Amalfi Coast doesn't have the infrastructure to support this tourism. Oh my God. Every single
Oh dear. So thoughts, feelings, reactions.
Well, of course, people that are sharing it on social media, their comments are about, how spoiled and how entitled she is. And here she is in a beautiful place and she's complaining. But here's the thing. she's not wrong. These are all the conditions of Positano. And I'm not saying I sympathize with her. I don't have any sympathy for her at all. She took what she saw, beautiful photographs taken from drones of a destination that is 2.2 square miles of primarily luxury resorts. She's trying to have a budget version of a trip in one of the world's most expensive destinations. And she's surprised that it's not so convenient. So this is something that people do not understand about the Amalfi Coast that I explain over and over again. And I think 90% of the time they don't believe me. They think I'm trying to sell them on something else. I don't get any money for somebody not going to the Amalfi Coast, but it's a series of sea-facing cliffs with little teeny tiny houses built into the mountains. It's not an easy or an inexpensive place to visit. It's really got some unique challenges, and it's small. There's just not a lot of space.
No, I know. And it's so hard because it is so beautiful. And people whose job it is to make beautiful things come alive, it's an easy job for them, Positano, because it is so absolutely beautiful. And you know what, I am going to go back with you in September, but we're going to do it in a way that is not stressful. So and we're going to go by boat. And so this is, to me, the way to see this coastline is just to embrace the nature and just get out there on the water and enjoy it away from lots and lots of people. So that's just, I think that's my number one tip. Did you have anything else?
I mean, the thing is about the boat is it's not cheap. It's not a bargain. No. Like you got to splurge. Just so many people, because, of apartment rentals and things like that online show up in these places. The experience they have in mind is that of a luxury resort destination. The other thing that she mentions in this video was that the power was going out because the Amalfi Coast, she says, doesn't have infrastructure to support this. The Amalfi Coast is a real place. And actually, people do live there. And they're dealing, they have their power going out, people that have to get up and go to work and work in all of those hotels and drive taxis. Their power is going out too because of this over tourism that is happening. So I just think that people need to be clear-eyed. If you're going to a place like Positano, which is 2.2 square miles, and you know that it is such a popular destination, you either really need to pay to have a top-end experience or be really prepared for some challenges.
Yeah, you're right. And Maria, who's watching us live on Facebook, said that she wonders whether people think that Italy is a bit of a theme park and a bucket list kind of checklist destination rather than it's a country, and that people need to have realistic expectations about what to expect when they get there. And there is some struggles at the moment, and it's because there are so many people there, and they're all crammed into the few handfuls of spaces that they've seen that they think they have to do and see. And really, Italy has got a vast number of options that people can choose from, and that's what we try and give you, the different options, because you can be on the Amalfi Coast, or you can go down to where Danielle's family is, just, not far from there, and there won't be hardly anyone. So, same coastline, same beautiful.
Go further south. Yep.
Same water.
Fishing villages that were like Positano before, $3,000 a night's resorts were there. When Hemingway discovered Positano, you can go 30 miles down south and find villages like Hemingway discovered all of those years ago. And you just got to realize too, like the reason you all know about Positano is because cruise ships and resorts have been feeding you advertising because the Kardashians went there and had a wedding. Like, even if, like, I have never intentionally ingested anything Kardashian, yet it still pervades our world. And, all of these ideas kind of get filtered through social media. And so this TikToker, when she said, "How dare these things show up on my to-do page?" You got to do your homework. You have to do your
homework. Well, I think everyone that follows us is really smart and is doing their homework. Yeah, that's why they're on the Facebook group or following the podcast. So respect to everyone who's doing their homework. But yeah, I know it's just the pool of Positano is just yeah. I found it a little bit disappointing, and I know others did too. But let's move on. Let's move on to Rome and some of the other crowded places, because and the heat. Oh my goodness. So summer, if you're planning to go for the rest of the summer and for next year or years beyond, we do want to cover a few tips here, because I think the newsreels have been full of information about how hot it is over there and how crowded it is. So let's why is it? I think everyone's, like just getting back into the travel game after the Yeah. Are you there? Yeah.
Oh, yep. Froze up for a little bit.
Yep. So why do you think there's so many crowds, Danielle?
I think this is the real travel revenge year. I think last year, in the United States, you still had to test for COVID to return back. So a lot of people did go, but they made last minute plans. And I think this year people are doing the really classic journeys. They're doing Florence, Venice, Rome, Amalfi Coast, Cinque Terre. And, I 100% understand why people are choosing these locations, but seeing the cities in particular in the summer months is a challenge no matter what. It's always hot in Rome, and now we're throwing extraordinary heat into the mix. Also, Rome is not in the greatest shape right now. There's a lot of garbage on the street. There's a lot of political problems in Rome. And I tested some advice that I gave. I was in Rome at the end of my trip. I did 6 weeks in Italy. I did Calabria, Puglia, Irpinia, Cilento, and Rome. So I really covered a lot of ground. So I was unexpectedly in Rome for 5 days, and I didn't have restaurant reservations. And I always tell people, if you want to eat well in Rome, you don't want to eat tourist junk, you've got to make reservations. And my previous advice was correct. I found some pretty dreadful food, even knowing what I'm doing and speaking Italian very well and all that. It's still not an easy place to be spontaneous. Just the nature of it being a very busy city, the Italian capital, and the addition of so many tourists, and then the heat on top of it. The challenges of the Colosseum are also still going on. And now there's also the additional ticketing to get into the Pantheon. So there are even more details that you kind of need to plan for ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely ways you can get around all of that, because like we mentioned before, it's all about the planning. And I think being spontaneous is great, and I love being spontaneous, but if you want to make the most of your short and precious vacation time, then you want to make sure you're not sort of standing in lines and standing, like waiting for trains and things like that. And you have to make a nod to the fact that the infrastructure might not be what you expect at home. Like today I was reading that there's just such a massive lack of taxis in Rome because they haven't issued licenses for many years. So and obviously Uber is not readily available there either. So, like be prepared to walk and plan your days around if you've got mobility issues or you get tired very easily. Most of us do in the heat. Plan your days around a specific area so that you can, you don't have to rely on the transportation and you can walk to most places, because, and the timing of it, go in the early morning or in the evening if you can, and, make sure you're out of the sun in the heat of the day.
I picked up a great tip from my relatives there, which is, I think a lot of English speakers, when they're at a loss to where to go for a restaurant, they'll turn to TripAdvisor. You're only getting tourist information there. Italians only use Instagram when they're searching for something. If Italians are in a place, in a city, in a town, and they want to know where to eat, they use Instagram to search for restaurants. So that might require you needing to also download Google Translate so you can figure it out. But if you really want to find out where the locals are eating, you want to read the advice of Italians.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, I guess it's very visual food, for Italians especially. So maybe.
Well, even when political propaganda spreads in Italy and the United States, it happened on Facebook. in Italy, it happens on Instagram. They're a very visual culture.
Good to know. Good to know.
Using
I'll have
Instagram to
to.
search for restaurants.
Oh, so that's a good tip. So Instagram for your restaurant recommendations. And I think as well, yeah, TripAdvisor, I don't know. I don't want to know what's happened to TripAdvisor lately. It's just, it used to be, maybe it's done its run. I don't know.
Yeah, I think people go to TripAdvisor to have their day in court. And there's also a lot of bots and reviews that are generated that are, falsely generated. So it's a grain of salt platform, in my opinion, these days.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of that anyway. So that's why, it's really good to find your true north, who you want to trust when you get your information. I just think, like I did a random search of YouTube and I'm just, I despair because there's there's the reality and everything. So anyway, so that's the thing. So just be organized and be prepared for the heat. Take a water bottle. There's free water everywhere in Rome. You can fill up wherever you go. So many different fountains, and it's all free. There's
if you're stuck traveling in July and August, because that's when you have time off and that's when your kids are away from school. Of course, you're not going to fly across the ocean and not go to the Vatican or go to Florence. You're going to want to go to some of these famous places, of course. But I would say don't do Florence, Venice, Rome in those hot months. If you're going to do one of those cities or two of those cities, put something else in there that is quiet. Go to Rome and then go to Le Marche. I just had some clients who went to Le Marche for maybe 4 or 5 days at the end of their trip. Said it was their favorite part. Kids didn't want to leave the villa that they rented. It was just an amazing experience that nobody had ever heard about. And when they told their friends where they were going, they were all like, why aren't you going to Venice? Why aren't you going to Positano? And they felt this peer pressure, but they couldn't have been happier with their plans. So go to Rome, go to Florence, go to Venice, but pick something else if you're going in July and August where you can really have a proper vacation and experience a bit of authentic Italy.
Yeah, that's what we do. Like we sort of dip in and out. Like we're going to we're going in September, we're going to Florence for a few days and then we're going up to the Dolomites. And I think that how I tend to plan the days, because I've got small or youngish children, is that we do some activity in the morning and then we just come and splodge by the pool in the afternoon. And it's worked out so well. Like, and then we go out for dinner in the evening or aperitivo and just go for a walk in the beautiful villages. And it just works out perfectly. Danielle, what about Le Marche? Why don't you tell everyone, where is Le Marche?
Le Marche is on the eastern side of Italy. It's right next to Lazio, the region where Rome is, and the Abruzzo. And it's a region that has a beautiful coastline and a national park on the coast with beautiful beaches that Italians go to. The region Le Marche is best known within Italy as a place where all the best Italian shoes are made. So there's a lot of actually good outlets hidden in Le Marche if you want to do some shopping. And then there are 2 cities there that are just extraordinary. There's Urbino, which is one of my favorite cities. Actually studied Urbino as part of my master's thesis, and it's a beautiful hilltop village. It's actually one of the coldest places in Europe. They get a lot of snow in the summer, which makes it a perfect place to go in the summertime because it is a hilltop town. If you want to have the Siena San Gimignano experience, go to Urbino. It's also a university town, so there's a cool local life there. And then this other beautiful city called Ascoli Piceno. The entire city is composed out of travertine. It was designed to look as though it's glowing under moonlight. Big, beautiful piazzas where you can really live that Italian dream that everybody has in their heads of sitting in the piazza. There, you're not going to drink an Aperol spritz. You're going to drink a Maletti spritz because Maletti is the bitter that is local to that town. And these are just really beautiful, well-heeled, well-organized cities that cost a lot less, or a lot cleaner than Rome right now. But just, not that far away from Florence, from Rome, where you could absolutely, pair a place like Le Marche with a visit to Florence or Rome so that you have a more well-balanced trip.
Yeah. 100% agree. Like there's so many cities and places in Italy to explore that, one of our favorite places that we'll be going back to this year is Emilia Romagna. And just outside of Modena. It's just a beautiful area. People are so friendly. They've got amazing food. It's very pretty with the countryside, and, you know, very similar to what people expect from Tuscany, but like a whole other world away, where you're not going to really run into a lot of other tourists, and you're going to have a beautiful, relaxing experience that is full, you know, that you will remember. And it's hard to sort of combat this relentless, you've got to see this, you've got to see that. But, you know, and maybe you do, but maybe, like Danielle says, you split it up with like a trip to a city and then go and explore some more. And I have to say, from all our tour clients, that's what they love the most, is getting that contrast of, you know, having that time to explore some of those major sites and really, you know, getting that over and done with, and enjoying it in the best way that they can, but also, you know, heading out into the countryside and seeing a different part of Italy that they may not be splashed all over Instagram or YouTube.
Yeah, and you know, Italians do town and country so well. I'm not sure how it is in Australia, but in the United States, you know, there tends to be a pretty big division between rural places and cities. Italians, you know, who live in rural areas in these small towns, they are still everything you want of Italians. They are still beautifully dressed. They, in many ways, like, live the Italian life much, much more so. You know, life in Florence and Venice, Florence and Rome in particular, Milan, you know, this is modern life. That's not that different from my life in New York City. But in these small towns, if you really want to have a passeggiata and, you know, see the entire family eating dinner until 2 a.m. at a local restaurant, just go to small town Italy. It's there and it's fantastic.
And the people that live in the cities, the Italians that live in the cities, that's what they crave for their holidays too, isn't it? So that's what they're doing.
I feel like the biggest secret is that Italians are as nostalgic for their grandmothers as, like, a lot of, you know, Italian Americans or Italian Australians are for their grandparents. They are so nostalgic and yearn so much for that authentic Italian life in the countryside. And they, you know, so many people just bemoan having to live in a place like Milan because that's where their job is, because their heart is really back home in Puglia or in Sicily.
Yeah, exactly. So I was asking Danielle before, as a mum, and, you know, it's just, I think it's a cultural thing. In Australia, we actually have no problem taking our kids out of school to take them traveling. And I know in the UK that's not possible due to their school education. But I mean, is it? Do you think it's possible at all in the US for people to take their kids out of school, maybe not in the summer holidays?
It's very hard. I mean, the people that I know have done it have made a concerted effort that, you know, this was like sort of a value of their family, and they pulled their kids out of school and they homeschooled them. You know, it was a huge effort. It's not so easy. And I don't know about in Australia, but sports really dominates the lives of people with children, and missing sports and schedules. There's so many, I don't know. Being a kid in the United States is a complex these days. So I think it's really hard for parents to pull their kids out of school unless there's a very specific mission that the family has in mind.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. So obviously families and teachers are really locked into this July, August kind of schedule. So what we've just discussed is really, you know, really for you people, but anyone else who has any flexibility around time that they can travel, please go on the shoulder seasons, go March, go even November. October is becoming very busy. If anyone's traveling on October this year, please make sure you've booked your accommodation. I was trying to book something in Rome recently. There's not a lot of stuff left. You know,
busy as July this year.
Yeah, because I think people are getting the message that it's hot. So I think please be organized and you know, be flexible around your travel times. You really can have an incredible experience. I love being in Italy when there's a little bit of crispiness in the air. There's the rain seems to not hang around for too long. It just washes through if it comes, and it's my favorite times to visit is in the late fall or the late autumn and in early spring. It's just delightful.
You know, the people ask about the shoulder season all the time. I don't know that there is much of a shoulder season anymore, but I would say the best time, if you really truly want to avoid the crowds, is now March and early April. And if you are going to Florence, Venice, Rome, you spend so much time inside anyway, because you're going to museums and churches and sites. The good weather is not necessary. It's not like going to the Amalfi Coast in March. If you're going to do the big cities, March or April is the best time.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what about some of the experiences that we can have? Like, so let's focus on summer, because that's what people are doing. And there are, if we've established that there's some different places that we can go to, and you can even go to different places on a day trip, even from Rome, there's some nice beaches. I think there's Santa Severa is one with a castle on the beach. And there's, do you know some other places you could get by train?
Yeah, you can go to Sperlonga, which also has a great archaeological museum as well. I love a good archaeological museum, but that's beautiful. Actually, I was chatting with somebody on the plane who said that somebody she worked with had a grandmother from Sperlonga, and she was advised to go there, and she said it was the single best day of her 2-week vacation. Again, off the beaten path, but she also got out. She was in Rome, and so she got out of the heat. And there's just even that word experiences, I think really focusing on experiences instead of sites or checklists or the theme parkification of Italy is such a valuable thing to do. And, one piece of advice or one question actually that I almost always ask my consultation clients, and 90% of them don't have an answer and look a little thrown off when I ask them this, is I say, what's your overall budget for the trip? And I think a lot of people tend to think of a per night budget based on hotels and how much food they think they're going to eat. But the reason I ask for an overall budget is I want to prioritize experiences. And when I ask people about their experiences, say, for example, their experience that they really want, the dream of Italy that plays in their head is to cook with an Italian nonna and learn how to make pasta. It is so worth eating a few sandwiches or staying in a less expensive hotel part of the trip in order to spend as much money as you can on having that beautiful experience, because that's what's going to make your trip really special and memorable.
100%, absolutely. And I think then that takes it to a different, you have to go a little bit deeper, don't you? You have to really search inside yourself. This is really, why is it that you want to go to Italy? What is driving you? What's the passion behind it? And so you do need to ask yourself those questions. And sometimes it can be a bit confronting, because I think it's the way we've been conditioned lately is that, there's all these suggestions that come at you, and it's almost a bit overwhelming, and so you kind of lose sight of what is it that you want. And so I think it's that's probably why people are a little bit hesitant to actually share that information, because maybe they just don't even know, or they haven't really asked themselves that question. And I think we all, as travelers, we all go on a bit of a journey. I know, when I first started traveling as a backpacker, I just was like, I want to see everything, I'm in my 20s, and, you do go through a bit of an evolution. But I think what we're here to do is maybe speed that up a little bit and give you some tips about how to, have those amazing, beautiful experiences, because some of the favorite things that I've done just in the last year in Italy include my friend Ariana. She knows I love baby goats, and so when we went to visit her in Tuscany, she took me to the goat's cheese farm, and it was sort of like early summer, so all the little baby goats were running around, and I got to cuddle them. And then I got to taste the delicious cheese and learn about all the fun things about what you can do with goat's cheese. So it's just that to me, I'm going to remember that. That's what I remember from the trip, And,
you needed somebody like Ariana to coordinate that experience. And, very often you need somebody like that also to be a translator. And that's really worth spending money on. And, travel is a marketplace, and you go online and there's the marketplace of things to buy. And also, again, when people are thinking about their budget, you're like you do with everything, right? You try to get the best deal on every single thing that you're purchasing. But it's really not the best way to go about travel. It's such a important experience. You're spending so much time and so much money, and you really deserve to have a beautiful memory that comes of it. One of the experiences that I had just on this most recent trip is I spent 2 days in a part of Campania called Irpinia, and it's just north of the Amalfi coast. It's like 45 minutes from Positano, but it's a different world. It's in the mountains, sort of east of Naples. And I spent 2 days visiting different winemakers there and having lunch with them. And there was a woman I work with named Sarah, who's a collaborator of mine, who's an American who lives there, and she facilitated these experiences. And I send many of my clients there, and she always serves as the translator and the driver even. But we sat with these winemakers in their kitchens, in their homes. And one of the things that they were talking about were the challenges of this year, about all of the rain that's had all over Europe and how this is going to impact the wine and how this impacts them and their traditions. And one of the things that they said over and over again was, we really rely on our relatives, our older relatives, for wisdom about what to do when things are difficult, and they don't have any wisdom for this year, so that leads into conversations about climate change. And here we are sitting with just a real salt of the earth people, eating delicious food, having big conversations about the world, and that it was priceless. It was a priceless experience, and like my heart was just like so full after that, more so than any sort of perfunctory tour I would have felt obligated to do if it was my first time in Italy.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great point. And I know that both you and I, we have a very similar view on this, but if you want to go and experience something that's truly local and have those experiences, you are going to need quite a bit good Italian if you're going out, to truly local experiences, or you'll need to have someone with you that can speak Italian fairly well, or very well, I would say. And then also, a lot of these places, they're not advertising on Viator or Get Your Guide. They don't want to, right?
They do not exist online.
No, they don't.
No.
And it's really, really important because to know and to understand that those type of experiences are just, they're very, very, very special, but you need to know people to find them. So,
but the first step is knowing what it is you want to do. Like, craft the experience, have the dream, and then you'll find it. You will find it, but you need to know what it is in your heart you really want to experience.
That's true. And I think, I've been grappling with this, and I did a podcast about this recently, but basically if you either want to invest the money and the time in that type of experience, and that's a personal choice, and everyone's different, and there's no judging. Everyone's got a different budget, everyone's got a different motivations for their travel, all of that. But I would say that if you can't just go and book those type of things online. You can get say, for example, you can go visit wineries, right? You can do that. And you can find tours and etc. to do that online, but it's a different type of experience. So you need to really understand what it is that you want out of the experience. If you're really super into wine, I would definitely try and, find a local producer that knows, or operator that knows exactly about wine, because you will not. There are big wineries like there are everywhere in the world that you can go and visit, but it's a different experience to going to visit a family-run vineyard that has been doing that for generations and are really wanting to share the passion behind what they do. It's like chalk and cheese.
I love that.
Or it's like Barolo and Prosecco. Yeah. So I think, just get really deep and think what you want to experience, and you'll have those moments that you remember. Baby goats moments.
Yeah. And that's good when you're feeling overwhelmed about all the options and you don't know what to do. Like, if you prioritize the experiences, then everything will sort of fall in around that. Prioritize the experience and think about the budget, and then the decisions all start to become much easier.
And then as well, you just don't feel like you have to cram something into every single minute of every day. And that's another thing. You do want that time to relax. And no matter how long your vacation is and how, you just need that time to just reflect and soak it all in and just really, really think about what it is around you. Just activate all your senses and I think that's, to me, they're the memories that I have the most, is when I've actually taken time to just stop and activate. Danielle, you mentioned to me the other day that you did something very special in the Vatican. And this is a good example of where something you can invest in if you really are interested in art, and you have an art history. So what did you do?
I did the Keymasters tour of the Vatican museums and Sistine Chapels, which is at 6 a.m. You have to get there to the door of the Vatican museums by 5:50. I am not a morning person, so this is a big deal. That alone was an investment. It's very expensive. The tour is about $450 or $500 American dollars, 450 euros, I believe. And you are with just 20 other people for a private tour of the Vatican museums and Sistine Chapel before it opens. Of course, that's a ton of money. And when people say, is it worth it? I mean, for me, I studied art history. Michelangelo, seeing the Sistine Chapel, for me, like, I stood there in that room and I was just overcome with emotion. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I'm not kidding you. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever done. It's not for everybody. It's a lot of money. You got to get up early. Michelangelo is not your thing. You don't need to do it. But for me, that was an experience worth spending the money on. And I ate sandwiches for the rest of the week because I spent a lot on it. But I don't regret it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Wow. Yeah. So it's each to their own. Baby goats for some, Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel for others.
Also, too, I want to say, if people are feeling like, I don't know, that I'm like looking for some deep emotional experience in Italy, I think I just wanted to go see beautiful things. That's fine too. But I would, I think a lot of the Amalfi Coast people are looking for that experience. And I would just redirect you to Puglia, because if you want to go to really amazing beaches, because the Amalfi Coast beach, it's terrible. Like, full stop. The beach in Positano is gross. The beaches in Puglia are some of the best on planet Earth. And then those beautiful towns like Monopoli, Loco Rotondo, if you want to take pictures of yourself in a sun hat looking hot, those are the places. And it's honestly still, even though it's become a more popular destination, I was there in June. It was still pretty quiet. And, it's July and August when the Italians go down to Puglia that it gets really busy. It's a little bit like the Florida of Italy for Italians. It's, where they go on the holidays. But even in June, it was still pretty quiet in Loco Rotondo. So, beautiful whitewashed cities. Ostuni would be another one. Polignano al Mare. You'll see plenty of these places on Instagram. If that's the experience that you want to have, that's the place to go. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. We just released a video that we took off one of our tours there, that we had some friends along that are videographers. And if you want to check out Puglia, and just so beautiful and just so like relaxed, I like to call it it's a bit like it's not dissimilar to Sicily, but it's much more chilled out. Like, you've got
people that tell me they're like, I'm not really into history, even though I go in a corner and I cry a little bit. Puglia doesn't have a ton of history going on. It's not done, you're not really missing anything by not engaging with history specifically in Puglia. It's there, of course, it's Italy. But I think that's a place where you can go and not feel the pressure to go see things that maybe you're not that excited about.
Yeah, it's I do love that. I love the Crusades and pilgrim. There's stories around pilgrims and the whole St. Michael's line, and to me that's really cool down in Puglia. But yeah, you're right, it's not really the place where you're getting, they do have Roman stuff there, and
but it's not like Rome where you've got Roman ruins from every traffic circle. It's much more of a vacation place,
and they do have amazing food and wine, like amazing. So good. If you like seafood, they even have the Italian version of sushi, which is called crudo, and delicious, so fresh. And here in Australia we do have some good seafood too, but sometimes it can be quite expensive. So if anyone is like an adventurous eater and wanted to try like a sea urchin, in Australia so expensive. When it's like €1 for I don't know what they like, a sea urchin, and you can scoop right out of the shell.
Oh gosh, I love sea urchin. Yeah, uni is called in Japanese. I'm crazy. And if you're an uni freak like I am, go to Puglia in March when they're all migrating or something, and you just feast on them.
Oh yeah, so good, so good. Hey, listen, if anyone's we've got some amazing comments. Maria reckons that she would do goats and Michelangelo, and I admit I would do, like that's I was being a little bit facetious. And Carrie's off to Puglia. Carrie's in our team, and she's off to Puglia in September, and she's very excited too. So if anyone has any questions, you feel free to drop them in the chat there. We can see all the messages coming through, and we'll answer a few questions here. But definitely Puglia. It's so amazing and so relaxing. And Maria also said that masarias are wonderful, and yes, they are. It's just a masaria is like a old fortified townhouse or just country house that's been or farmhouse and so many of them have been beautifully renovated, and they'll have swimming pools and all of that, and some of them have restaurants on site. We stay at a beautiful masseria on our tours, and it's just an amazing place to relax. Might be surrounded by these monumental olive trees that have been there since the dawn of time, and it's a totally different pace, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I stayed at a masseria in Martina Franca for a few days, and I travel with my dog, and I think Puglia was her favorite place. She was just off the leash for 3 days because we were staying at a masseria that's also a lentil farm, so there were no roads near us, and I just left her alone, and she had a wonderful time. A bike ride is so essential in Puglia because it's pretty flat, so even if you're not athletic, a bike ride is a really great way to drive through those beautiful groves of olive trees and see the Trulli and just experience the landscape.
Yeah, it's so beautiful there. And I like it especially because there's so many different contrasts. So you've got, you've got the red earth and the olive trees, and you've got the whitewashed towns, and then you've got the sea, which is so blue, the Adriatic Sea. And there's very different landscapes than you're seeing in Amalfi Coast, which is obviously very steep and cliffs and stony beaches. But in Puglia, they have sandy beaches. So.
Yeah, and you can go on the eastern side of Puglia, it's pure rock. I mean, even you go to the beach clubs. I went to a great beach club in Savaletri, but you are on rocks. If you want the sand, you can just drive an hour in the other direction to the interior side facing the Ionian Sea. And that's the part that people call the Maldives of Italy. And you can do both. Nice. So if you're a beach person, you want to have a really good beach holiday, go to Rome, see all the things you're going to see in Rome, but then go to Puglia and have that experience.
Yeah. And so I totally agree. Like, absolutely. And you know what? Being Australian, we only have sandy beaches. What are these stones? They are slippery and slimy. But I do like the rock beaches, actually, because there's no sand. Sand getting in your costume or your bathers or whatever. We've got a million different ways to say swimsuit in Australia. But yeah, so I actually was a little bit, I don't know about this rock, but it was really good, actually. I really enjoyed it. Okay, and Carrie just was like, and Carrie, spoiler alert, well, we will ask Danielle this question. However, we do have an episode coming up with Corinna about this very topic. She would love to know what you consider to be a great family beach getaway that may be off the beaten track. And she said she'd love to visit Elba Island.
I like Elba. I just don't think Tuscany has got the best beaches in Italy. There was a report that came out in Italy that said the best beaches in Italy were in Tuscany, and everybody was like, "So who did Regione Toscana pay off?" Because nobody in Italy believes that. I would say go to Ponza, the island of Ponza, which is you can get to by ferry from Rome. It's where a lot of Italians go, and it feels very like the 1950s in many ways. And, my love for Ischia is been well touted on this podcast many, many times, but I would say for families specifically, that is a fantastic getaway.
Yeah. I've got my eye on Sardinia myself. That looks pretty nice. There's so many options because, Italy is basically a peninsula. So it's surrounded by water. And so you've got so many options. And you mentioned Le Marche earlier, the Emilia-Romagna coast. And I know it's very, very popular with Europeans around Rimini up there, which is a bit more huge, like a bit more resorty, I think.
Yeah.
And even
I don't love Rimini. I feel like it's where people go for nightclubs. But I think a little south of there, again in Le Marche, Ancona, that's a good place to go for families.
Yeah. And I mean, even Venice has beaches. Let's not forget. If you're in Venice and you've had enough of the city, go to the beach. It's right there on the Lido. You just need to take Vaporetto #1 and you're there.
And that's actually something important to know. When you're talking about going to what we call in English the beach, in Italians, they're going to call it a lido, because that's going to be a place where you actually have like proper egress to the beach, to the sand and the water. And often that's where you'll find beach clubs or even just little stands. Sometimes the public beaches are open, but they are called lidos. So if you're doing a search to try to find where to go, look for that word, LIDO.
Oh my goodness. And this is another thing that's pretty unique. But we just don't have them in Australia. You do not pay to go to the beach. Okay. We just don't pay. It's just unthought of. Right. So basically when you go there, you can pay to have like a beach chair and an umbrella, and they bring you things like you can order a cappuccino, you can order your spritz. It's very civilized. I'm just saying. I love it.
Great octopus sandwich at the beach club in Puglia.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. I just need to know what they've got at the beach club in Cilento. Yeah. They got ready for me.
Is a glamorous experience. You feel like a movie star in that place. Just wait. Katy's going there in September. I can't wait for you to experience it.
I'm so excited. So, I'm actually for those of you who like to think of ways to celebrate their milestone achievements in life, I'm having a big birthday soon, and I am going to Cilento, which is south of Amalfi, and I'm very, very excited to be going there with my family and friends, and we're just very excited about experiencing a part of Italy that not many people go to, but perhaps that they should. Just saying.
And you're going to have a day trip on the Amalfi Coast. So sometimes these really famous sites, if you stay just a little bit east or west of them, you can still experience those big famous sites, but you can go back at the end of the day to a place that's not so crowded and expensive.
That's right. Carrie had one more question. She wanted to know if the best places for a few nights, beach nights near Rome, Spelonga, Gaeta, or north of Rome. Yeah, I don't know that area so well, so...
I would go to Spelonga in that case.
Yeah. Spelonga. How lovely. All right. Anyone else got any questions? Yeah. Ooh. Maria's loving the advice. Maria's is I don't know, Maria, how many times do you go to Italy a year? I think it's several. She's like a serial visitor like us. So she loves having a great She had a great time in Levanto recently. We loved Levanto too last year. It's so nice. Yeah. Just beautiful. If you're going to the Cinque Terre, that's actually a really great place to stay. I don't want to advertise it too much, but Levanto is just the next stop on the train line from Monterosso a Mare, so you can easily get into the towns and then escape back to the beach, which is a sandy beach down there, and they've got a sea pool and like lots of beautiful, it's beautiful there, and it's just far away. Maria says shush. No, I mean the Europeans know Levanto, they do. So
yeah, for sure,
it's very well known, but I think that's another option. If you're going to the Cinque Terre, just have a look at the towns along the coast and on the train line, and you will pick up a few great tips. I mean, I love Camogli, I love Sestri Levante. Liguria is so untapped, and I don't understand why. It's just beautiful.
There is a local, people in Italy say that Ligurians are famously unfriendly. It's sort of a stereotype among Italians, but I have not had that experience. Sometimes every culture has their, especially Italy, there's a famous syndrome in Italy called campanilismo, which refers to the campanile, the bell tower of each town, which is your tower is the best, and the tower in the town next to it is the worst place on earth. And Ligurians, like Genoa is like the Naples of the North. People like to make fun of Liguria, but I think it is a real treasure. I think it's a beautiful region. It has some of the most unique food. And what I think is best about Liguria, especially Genoa, is that it's a port town. And so you have influence from all over the world there. And so it's a really interesting, dynamic place. It's not frozen in time. And, you know, that's a complaint that a lot of Tuscans have about themselves, is that their history is so extraordinary, but it also holds them back. And so I think it's interesting, again, in terms of contrast. I'm always sort of, you know, keep encouraging this contrast. A place like Florence, frozen in time, and that's what's amazing about it. But then it's also really cool to go to a city like Genoa, experience the coast, and see a place that...
I was in Genoa in April.
And you
honestly, I loved it. I loved it so much. And there's so many cool shops, and just the way they... it's a very rich town, because, you know, they were the merchants, and they provided all the navy people when people were discovering the New World. And so they have an extremely rich past as well, but it's a lot of it's hidden, and you have to like go into these you need to be there with a local. Actually, we've got a tour in Liguria in spring next year, and I'm so excited about it because, you know, the food, as you say, there is amazing. It's very focused on the local terrain. You've got a lot of lentils and pulses, and also the basil and pesto. If you love that really fresh flavor, then that's the way to go, because, you know, this was like a massive revelation to me, because, you know, people teach how to make pesto all the time, but like, why doesn't it taste the same as when you're in Liguria? Well, it's the actual variety of basil that they use, and also the variety of garlic and the olive oil, which they're very proud of there too. So all of those things go into making this delicious sauce, which, let me tell you, mind blown. You know, when you go there.
One of the best cities in Italy to do a food tour. If you're a food person, I would say Genoa, Modena, Naples, and Palermo. Best cities to do a food tour.
Well, I mean, as you know, I'm a serial food tour person. So yeah, I do agree with all of those. It's terrible. Oh dear. Oh, and now we have one question, which I think a lot of people will want to know the answer to. Carrie wanted to know, when is the direct train from Rome to Pompeii going to be on sale? I read something today that said it's only going to be on one Sunday, on the third Sunday of every month. And I thought, oh my goodness, why bother?
Okay, and I think I may have said this in the past before on the podcast, but don't do that. Don't take the trip from Rome to Pompeii. No, it's a bad idea. Go to Ostia. Ostia Antica is a Roman city right near the airport in Rome. Unlike Pompeii, it wasn't covered in volcanic material. Instead, it's sunk into the silt, and it's perfectly preserved. It's 1,000,000 times more well preserved than Pompeii, and it's just outside of Rome. Do not spend all day on the train to go to Pompeii from Rome. Bad idea. If you're staying in Naples, go to Pompeii. From Rome, go to Ostia. I actually got a text from my friend Pat this morning. She says, I got 24 hours in Rome. Tell me some place where nobody else is to go. I said, go to Ostia. And she said, this place is incredible and nobody is here. Go to Ostia.
Yes. Love it. Yeah. Look, I think, I mean, why is it that he cannot convince people that they should go somewhere differently, though? It's really, don't trust us. Danielle has been to all of these places multiple times, right? And you love Pompeii, right? She loves it.
I've been to Pompeii about 30 times. I've written articles about Pompeii. My father's family is from just outside of Pompeii. I love Pompeii. I think it's incredible. But if you're in Rome, it's too far. It's too far. And you could, why would you spend all that time in transit when you can go to Ostia?
Yeah. And even like, so like we went to Herculaneum last year instead of Pompeii. Amazing, because they have artifacts there which they don't have at Pompeii. And yeah, you can get up really close to the frescoes and then the mosaics there. It's much more compact. So especially if you've got some mobility issues, like getting around Pompeii, it's a nightmare. Like really, yeah.
It's brutal, absolutely brutal. And if you really have mobility issues, go to Aplantis, which is just one villa that was also destroyed in 79, and it's really flat, and you can walk around the entire villa without having to traverse any of the uneven paving stones that you have all over Pompeii and in Herculaneum. So there are plenty of options. And just don't, when your neighbor says, why aren't you going here, here, and here? Just tell them you've been listening to the Untold Italy podcast. And you got some
yeah, I have it on good authority that there are other options. Yeah, so I think my favorite thing, and I've said this a couple of times, is one thing that just really opened my eyes to what's happening, especially now online, is that even before we had all this, the internet, and we had guidebooks, and guidebooks would direct you to the same places. Very famously in the movie A Room with a View, Lucy, they're trying to follow the Baedeker, which is the old the old guidebook, and she wants to throw it in the river because it's just taking her to the same places that everyone's going to. But now we have that on steroids. And what really blew my mind in Venice was that I was walking to meet someone, Monica actually, Cesarato, she's been on, what's that guy, Eugene Levy, she's been on that show. She's gonna come back on Untold Italy. I feel very flattered. And I was meeting Monica. Anyway, I put my thing in Google, and guess what? Everyone had the same instructions. Google pushed everyone into the same streets, right? And it was like, it was crammed. You could hardly move. I was really feeling a little bit claustrophobic. And then I realized everyone had their phone out and was doing this. And I went, oh, Google's all pushing us in the same funnel. I don't want to be in the same funnel as Google. Get out. I said, I'm going that way. And then that was, it was just, to me, that was the ultimate like lights on moment. It was just like everyone had their phone and was going the same way. And it's not just in terms of directions, but it's also in terms of like where we choose to go. Yeah. Okay. So throw the Baedeker into the river, into the Arno, and, follow your own path. It's one of those, I think it's a nice contrast. But as an aside to that, if you haven't seen that movie, do go watch it. And I'm very sad because Julian Sands, who plays the love interest in the movie, he actually passed away. And I was just absolutely devastated when I heard the news, because that's one of my favorite movies and of all time. It is an absolutely beautiful movie. And if you really want to discover Florence in a most magical way, that's the way to do it. Watch A Room with a View.
There's a lot of people that are traveling now who are Generation X people. Their kids are getting, of the age where they're either coming with them or they're out of school and they finished paying for their college. And I call these folks the before sunrise generation, in reference to that movie with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delphi, where they spend the night roaming around Vienna. And, I was sort of the tail end of that. My earliest travels when I was in college were without a phone, I had a guidebook, I had a Let's Go guide, but like no Google Maps, no Google Translate, no TripAdvisor. It was fantastic. It was, thank God I am the age that I am and I got to experience that. So for all of you Gen Xers who are returning to travel after maybe 20, 30 years, Europe is not the same place anymore. But if you want to have that experience that we got to have of really exploring new places, why would you be afraid? You did it when you didn't have anything, when you had no resources whatsoever. And, now you always can pull up the maps and Google Translate if you need it, but don't feel the peer pressure. It's people of this age know how great it can be to find things on the fly.
Yeah, totally. Well, they are the best memories, like if I think of my favorite travel memories, I'll never forget arriving in Florence for the first time and you arrived on the train station at Santa Maria Novella and you walked off with your backpack and there was all these people holding signs, apartment, 1 room, however many lira it was lira back in those days. And it was like, oh, we've got to just make a choice. Let's choose that one. And the next thing you know, you're waking up in an apartment in the middle of Florence and the bells are tolling next to your room and you're like, oh, that wasn't a bad choice after all.
No, not everybody in the world is as wired as we are in the United States or Australia or Canada. I was in Calabria. There's no Wi-Fi to be found. And I've had this experience in Sicily, like outside of Palermo, not like in the middle of Sicily, like in fairly, well-populated metropolitan area. People are just not as connected to the internet as we are. And it's important to remember that. So you can have your experience on their time frame, which is going to be slower and more local. And I think deeper and richer too. But you got to be open to it. You have to be open to it.
Yeah, I'm open. I do like my comforts, but mix it up, everyone. Mix it up. Yeah, it's good. Well, that's an hour up there, Danielle. I had such a great chat as always. We always have a wonderful chat, and I think everyone, if you want some really amazing advice, Danielle is the person to go to for all your trip planning needs. Would you want to tell everyone how they can reach you?
Yes, if you go to feasttravel.com, that's my website, and you will see in the navigation bar consultations and planning. So if you click there, you can make an appointment with me. It's 90 minutes online. I share my screen with you. We do this on Zoom. I open up our database of all of our resources, what we use to plan trips for our private clients, everything from restaurants, guides, tours, places you should see, all those good, meaningful experiences. We craft your whole trip in 90 minutes. And then you also have access to me later to ask questions as you're making your bookings if you encounter any problems. So I love doing these. I give you everything. I open up the keys to the kingdom. I'm pulling up my phone and giving you personal phone numbers of people throughout these. And I've met so many people this summer who had taken my advice and they were really happy, which makes me, of course, happy because I want you to have a wonderful time.
That's what we want. That's all. That's the motivation. Is we're not wanting to tell you what not to do. We're trying to give you options and ideas of what you can do. But to be honest as well, now Untold Italy reaches a very large audience with our website and our podcast and all of that. So I need to be very careful who I recommend and how, because some of these providers can't take the volume of requests that I get every day. So if you're wanting the really really special stuff, then you do need to book in with Danielle, or you need to join a tour with one of our multi-day tours, because we can't put the pressure on these people who are providing a service, at their own time and at their own pace. So we give a lot of resources on our website. Like there's hundreds and hundreds of articles that you can find information on, and we give a lot of suggestions and all of that you can find on our website and also on the podcast. And while we're here, I just want to make sure everyone knows, if you're watching the podcast, my assistant, who is also called Katy Clarke, it's one of those amazing coincidences in life, she does the most incredible show notes. They are so detailed. Every single name of every single place that's mentioned, restaurants, everything is in there. So all you need to do is go to the episode number, which I repeat usually every time, and you can find that on our website, untolditaly.com. Okay, everyone. Well, if you're heading to Italy this summer, have an amazing time, and make sure you're organized, but make sure you also make time for spending, just relaxing and engaging all those 5 senses. And I might see you around there in September. I'll be there myself, which isn't technically summer, but it is to me. And we'll be back another time with some more updates and Q&A with Danielle. But until then, it's ciao for now.
Bye, everyone.
Ciao, everyone. Bye.